Well, welcome everybody. It's just after 7 o'clock here on a Wednesday. It is January 7th, and this is 270 weather. Weather for the 270 area code and beyond. That means you. So if you live outside of the 270, we got you covered. Because this next system, especially, is going to be one that I think we're all going to pay attention to. And there's been a variety of takes, if you will, on how this is going to play out. I will tell you that even though there are, as you see here, there's these outlines and these outlooks, and it kind of looks like it could do something, but we're kind of on the border, and maybe it's not going to be that big of a deal. Well, I'm going to detail every bit of that coming up. So let's get to it. All right, here we are with the current outlook for day 2, which is tomorrow. It is Thursday. Now, in this green shaded area, that's just a general thunderstorm risk. General thunderstorm risk. In other words, your garden variety, rain, maybe a few thunderstorms, maybe some gusty wind. Most of this is going to be tomorrow afternoon and evening, for us anyway, here in the Bowling Green area. Now, this darker green back to the west, it is a level 1 marginal risk. So the take on this from the Storm Prediction Center is isolated severe storms are possible Thursday from Oklahoma into parts of the lower mid-Mississippi Valley. That would be southern Illinois, far western Kentucky, the Boot Heel of Missouri, much of Arkansas, West Tennessee, so forth and so on. Otherwise known as the Southern Plains. Well, that's the Oklahoma part. Southern Plains into the lower Mississippi Valley. The system, as they describe it here, will be the forcing of the thunderstorms as they go kind of racing off to the east, northeast, starting in Oklahoma at the beginning of tomorrow. Now, they are also talking about how there's plenty of Gulf moisture. There's a limit, though, and we talked about this. There's a limit to the instability. Now, we've got plenty of wind shear. In other words, the wind's changing speed and height with elevation. So we've got plenty of that. But there are some things that are just pretty limited at this point with this system. And that's what I guess gives me pause that for us, at least in southern Kentucky, and much of the 270 area code, even the 615, I just don't think that on Thursday, tomorrow, we are going to have that big of an issue. But now as we go into day 3, which is Friday, then we are then put under that marginal risk, and that's that level 1 low end risk. So what they're saying here is the negative tilt of the shortwave trough. In other words, there is enough of a, remember I've described this, the negative tilt, the positive tilt. At first, this was looking like it was going to lean positive, but now it's leaning a little more negative as the later models have come in. There's a low pressure system. I'll show you that in a moment as it's going over the Great Lakes, and then the cold front going south. So there is going to be enough, again, shear to produce the possibility of, I would say the number one thing here is going to be a damaging wind threat. Okay, because what we will have are stronger upper winds. A lot of those winds will come down to the ground, push out, causing gust fronts and causing those little bowing segments that may show up just before the cold front comes through. And that's usually when it happens. We will see it on radar, a big linear, kind of a big line of storms. And then out at the leading edge of it, there will be these little segments that can just kind of bow out. Those are the ones that can cause damage, but they can also do a little brief spin up tornado. So that's basically what all of this is saying. So they're kind of, but you know what? They're still kind of hedging their bets. I am not. This is looking more like the last couple of almost severe weather events that happened in December, if you'll recall. We would have a pretty good front come in, have some rain and thunderstorms, very gusty winds. There would be this kind of an outlook where we're seeing the green, level 1, and maybe a level 2, slight risk. But then as the system comes in, it's either the timing or much of the really available energy is somewhere else and displaced from us. And so here's the level 2 slight risk area, which is just south of Nashville and Jackson, Tennessee. It takes in Memphis, Birmingham, all the way to Baton Rouge, Jackson, Mississippi, Huntsville, Alabama. This is Friday. As we go into Friday, it looks like with the system as I just described, there will be enough support for what's called, you see it here, training thunderstorms. Now, is that like, you may be asking, training thunderstorms? Is that like when you train somebody to do a job, you're showing them how? No, it's not that kind of training. Training thunderstorms, they call it that because it's, if you can imagine a path, or like, let's use train tracks, because I like trains. Train tracks and the train that goes on the tracks and the cars associated with that train. There's just one after another, but they're going over the same area. That's training. Now, when we have the possibility of training thunderstorms, that tends to lean toward a flash flood threat, or at least a flooding threat. And that's the way I'm kind of seeing this evolve. Yes, there may be this time when we see these little blips, these little appendages or these little bends and little kinks in the line as it comes through. But behind it, there's going to be this big area on Friday night of just rain, rain, rain. And some of the rain could be very heavy. And so training thunderstorms means these things are going to just keep moving over the same piece of real estate. And with that, all that abundant moisture, somebody's going to get an inch, 2 inches of rain, or even more. And unless it runs off pretty quickly, then that could cause some flooding. So that's something I think is going to have to be watched beside the severe weather threat. So, yes, we could have damaging wind. Yes, we could have some hail because there's colder air aloft coming in on the backside of the system. Yes, there could be a brief spin-up tornado, but I do feel like the element here that's being overlooked is the element of flooding or heavy rain enough to cause some issues by the time we get into Friday night and early Saturday morning. So I want to look at that. First of all, let's look at this day 3. This is Friday. Let me show you the risk of tornado. Well, okay. So there is one back to the west. I forgot to show you that. So this is for Thursday. I'm sorry, that was today. Here's Thursday. I can't show you Friday. I can't show you that. They don't do the detailed outlooks of specific severe risks until tomorrow, one day out or ahead of the system. But this is the Thursday tornado risk is just 2%. See it there? 2%. Not much. It's never really zero. You know what I mean. All right, the wind threat on Thursday, we're looking at a 5% damaging wind risk. How about hail? At least not on Thursday. Now, this is what's called the probabilistic. This is the one I showed you the other day that showed like a 15% risk of any severe weather of anyone that lives in the shaded area, 25-mile radius around wherever you live. So if you live in Bowling Green, 25 miles out, you have in this case, you have a 5% chance of any kind of severe weather. But further south, where that severe weather risk is for Friday, then you have a 15% risk of getting severe weather. Now let's take a look at the excessive rainfall. Let me back up here. This is now. Here's tomorrow. Nothing there, but then here's Friday. Now, this is where I was talking about training, storms training, and the possibility that we could see some excessive rainfall or maybe even some minor flooding. That bears out right there. This is for Friday and Friday night from Bowling Green east and south. There is at least a 5% marginal risk of getting excessive rainfall. That would be anything, maybe over 2 inches or more. Slight risk at 15% is further south into around the Knoxville, Tennessee area. So here is the marginal risk, and here is the rainfall outlook. And this looks a lot like it did last night when I showed you this. This is the QPF, what's called the Quantitative Precipitation Forecast, and this is for Friday. Here in Bowling Green, we start out at a half inch of rain. But then further east, you get 8/10. You start to get an inch and a third. As you head out the Cumberland Parkway, here's Somerset, and you start to see 1.5 amounts down toward the Daniel Boone National Forest, almost 2 inches of rain. Further south, 2 inches of rain, and east, 2. Now, when you start to see these bright reds, we're talking 2.5 to around the Knoxville area, they could pick up 3 inches of rain. Now, in the Bowling Green, Southern Kentucky area, the 270, let me get my marker out here. We're talking about in this particular area, and this would also include Nashville, we're looking at really about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rain collectively. Some of this is going to start on day 2, which is tomorrow, Thursday. But for us, South Central Kentucky, Northern Middle Tennessee, I think 1 inch is going to be pretty common before all of this rain ends on Saturday morning. I can even back this up. So here's day 2, which is tomorrow. And you can see here that we're looking at a third of an inch plus another third inch, another 8/10 to an inch. So we're talking about close to an inch and a third. I can go to the multi-day outlook. This is today and tomorrow. That's a third of an inch. But now let's go days 1 through 3, which would include Friday and early Saturday. We're talking right at an inch of rain in Bowling Green with those higher amounts along the Cumberland Plateau. We go 1 through 5, which would also include Saturday and the weekend. And as you see there, not much changes. We're still about an inch of rain. So, but with some of those, what I mentioned, those training thunderstorms that keep running over the same piece of real estate over and over again, with some of those, you're likely to get more than an inch of rain. It would not surprise me at all if you get more than an inch of rain. So you do need to keep that in mind, because some of you are going to get a lot more rain than probably what you expected. And so that could cause some minor flooding and maybe cause some issues with, I would say, just, some back roads in some areas that, when it rains hard, then you get the water covering the road, especially those low water fords, with the little piece of concrete that goes over a creek bed. Those like that will probably get covered or flood. That's what I'm looking at here. So, yeah, expect that. I would say that's going to be a pretty good bet. What else are we looking at? Well, as you know, and I talked about this last night and this morning on News 40, the drought situation is that we're abnormally dry here in much of the Bowling Green, Southern Kentucky area. We're not technically in a drought, but it's gotten dry enough around here that inch and a half, 2 inches of rain, that's going to be welcome. It's going to be welcome. And the ground, I think, will soak up most of it so that we don't have to worry too much about anything flooding, except for back roads that normally do that. Okay? So the fun, and I'll show you in detail, will begin late tomorrow night, I think, is when we'll start to see some of the better rainfall. And then another piece of energy, second low pressure system, will move in on Friday, and that's when we get more fun, if you will. Let's check right now. Temperatures after getting into the 60s today have fallen off into the 40s. There's still a 50. There's a 52 in Edmonton right now, and a 50 down in Tompkinsville, 53 in Scottsville, but we've cooled into the 40s here in Bowling Green. The warmth today was nice after a chilly start. High temperatures today, as I mentioned, in the 60s. Officially here at the Bowling Green Airport, we had a high of 64. That's 18 degrees warmer than the normal high temperature of 46. Yeah, it felt good, though. You have to admit, it felt good. Now, we started out this morning, as you see here, lots of 30s. Most of us were around freezing to start the day, but then we started to get some 40s, especially to the east, as a cold front made its way through the area. Out ahead of the front, there was just enough warm air that some of you did start in the 40s, but that's also where you picked up the fog. And I think now the reverse is going to happen after a somewhat cool night, mild to, yeah, it'll be a mild, cool night, seasonably cool, we'll call it, in the mid 40s. But then we've got a layer of warm air that's going to start coming in early tomorrow morning, breezy south winds. I think before that happens, there's going to be enough warm air over the cool, damp ground to produce maybe some more patchy fog late tonight and early tomorrow. Of course, no precipitation past 24 hours. Winds, look at, they're all over the place. At least they're light and variable. And they have been all day, but you can see we've got north, northeast, east, a little south, southeast. I mean, this is why we call it light and variable, because the wind directions are, there's nothing to stir up the wind. But tomorrow, you're going to see these arrows when I show them to you, and they're all going to come out of the south as we get in, especially tomorrow afternoon and evening. All right. Now, here's where we get to the nitty gritty, and I can show you day by day how this next system is going to play out and who gets what. All right? So follow along if you can. And toward the end here, I will answer some of your questions if you have them in the comment section. But here we go. So high pressure is with us now. Little boundary. This is the cold front that came through this morning. It's beginning to stall. Now that's key, because the stalling of that boundary is going to play into the next system. There's actually two areas of low pressure that we're going to deal with. One, the first one, has more of a Pacific flow of moisture from the Baja of California that's going to surge right up into our area on the backside of this high pressure. This is midnight tonight, and the Weather Service is picking up on the possibility of some fog. And you see it there, even here in Bowling Green. Now, here is some of that Pacific moisture from the Baja of California. Yeah. So it's got a warm tinge to it. This is from the first piece of energy that's going to come in on Thursday afternoon. I think this is 6 a.m. I think most of us will start our Thursday tomorrow dry. I don't think we'll see any showers here tomorrow morning. And look at this. Do you see what I see? I mean, look at this. Head, mouth, trunk. Doesn't that look like an elephant? Or am I just seeing things? Anybody? Doesn't that look like an elephant? Wait a minute. Let me scoot it over where you can see all of it. Look at that. I know. I sometimes I see things like that, and it just looks, that to me, right there, looks like an elephant with the trunk, and you know. I remember the Tim Conway bit on Carol Burnett show. I can't say it. And Tim Conway threw them all off. Harvey Korman, Carol Burnett, and I think Dick Van Dyke was a part of that skit. It was the old Mama's Family, and he wore this kind of funny hat, and he dressed like a kid, and he had a hearing aid, and he talked about going to the zoo and the elephant and they all just lose it. You know, that's classic comedy. That's comedy we don't have anymore. But yes. Oh, come on. Butch is always trying to be the fly in the ointment. Just give the weather. All right. Butch, you're killing me, son. All right. So I'm giving the weather. But anyway, as this elephant comes into western Kentucky, it's going to be light rain, little breezy. This is midday on Thursday. Warm front lifting the moisture, elevating it a little. And with the rain, there might be a rumble of thunder, but I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. Tomorrow is just going to be windy and warm. Look at all the tight isobar lines here, which means it's going to be windy, and the winds will be coming from the south and southwest. So we'll start to get rain, especially as we head into Thursday afternoon. There's our warm front, enough lift maybe for what we call elevated thunderstorms. They're not surface based. Usually along a warm front, they're just elevated. So, in other words, these are not going to be the kind of storms that are strong or severe. Let's go to 6 a.m. Friday. So here's our warm front. Here is the big surge of moisture. And here is the next, well, two pieces of energy here. This is the first one. Here's the second one. This one back to the west is the one that has the big winter storm with it out in the plains, while we're basking in the warm sector with rain and thunderstorms. Now, 6 a.m. Friday, yes, as you get up, go to work, go to school, it's going to be raining, and there could be some thunderstorms. In fact, some of the stronger storms may be with us on Friday morning instead of Friday afternoon. Reset. Yeah, it reset on me. There. No, back one more. Okay, there we are. So now I want you to look at this, and you caught a piece of it there as I was backing up the systems. So remember last night, if you were watching me, I was talking about a phasing of these two systems. The first low is the one that is going to bring us showers and thunderstorms, especially Friday afternoon, Friday morning into Friday afternoon. And then as this low pressure system meets this one, well, this is when the severe weather gets started. And as you can see, we have a red zone, a rare wintertime red zone. Now, back in the summer and the fall, when I showed you this map, and we had red zones somewhere just about every day. In the wintertime, it's a rare thing, but here's one. It's the bullseye is Jackson, Mississippi, but even up to Greenwood, Mississippi, all the way down just about to Hattiesburg and Macomb, and right there along the Mississippi River, almost to Louisiana, well, at least northeastern Louisiana. So as you can see, that's far away from us. Now, in these kind of setups, let me tell you this. In these kind of setups, they're usually the energy is way with the southern energy, like where it is, placement of the low, the best energy is going to be to the south and east, and it takes a lot of energy away from us. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. That kind of setup will be where the best energy is south of us, therefore it robs us further north of getting really rough weather. That's not to say there's not going to be a strong storm or two, but it is more likely that the rough weather is going to stay well south of us. So that's more good news. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. What I'm saying is, if it does happen, it would be brief, it would be minor, and it's not going to be an up all night, pace the floor, worry kind of weather. Thunder, lightning, yes. Wind, yes. Maybe a little wind damage for somebody. But as the main system comes in, which is going to be early Saturday morning, right there, there it is. Now, the low is going to track out of Mississippi, Arkansas, and it's going to go north through the Nashville area and over Bowling Green and to around the Louisville area by Saturday morning. Now, does that mean something bad? No. That means the low is moving north, but it is weakening. It still will have a lot of rain and wind with it when it comes through early Saturday morning, but I don't think it's going to be a severe weather risk after that. Now, as you see here, with the colder air coming in behind the system, some parts of eastern Kentucky, the higher elevations, could see a little mix or some light snow flurries. Winds will start to come in from the northwest, much colder. Now, here's Monday, high pressure, ridge building, but look what happens. The winds change direction again and start to come from the southwest. So with near 70-degree temperatures tomorrow and Friday, we get up to near 60 on Saturday early. Then as the rain and the thunderstorms come in, the temperatures start to bottom. I mean, they start to fall Saturday afternoon. So we're down to about 30, maybe even upper 20s by Sunday morning. Here's Monday morning. The temperature there may only be in the 20s. But as you see here, we go from one really chilly day, really cold day on Sunday to warming right back up on Monday. Monday, we will make it back, I think, into the 40s. And then after that, as we get into Tuesday, warm around 50. And then here comes another little short wave, a little trough that comes in for next Wednesday. And this will be a chance of rain. Now, it's way out, but right now it just looks like a chance of rain. Let's go to the European map, and I can show you again. This one I can draw on, and I can show you. There's your rain snow line. That's where it is right now with the really warm air that's over our part of the country. So here is the flow, but it's also helping bring in, as you see here, this is the Baja of California down here. And look at this Pacific flow. Yeah, it's bringing in the moisture. The Gulf of Mexico right now, nothing showing up at the moment, but that's going to change. So I put this into motion. Here's overnight tonight. Notice that moisture from the Pacific then starts to get tapped in, and we start to see a little bit more. Let me get this darker. A little bit more in the way of Gulf moisture. And our low starts to deepen a little bit more as it moves over the Missouri River. Okay, so this is the beginning of what's going to happen tomorrow. A lot of this is not going to be severe for us. It will be back closer to the low. And notice the low goes about 900, what is that, 991 millibar? Yeah, as it moves from Missouri, and it's going to take and travel up through the Great Lakes. Backside of it's got a lot of snow in the cold air sector, and you can see now the trough that is building out to the west. That's the cold air that is going to come in by Saturday morning here. But out west, they're going to get it first as we head into Friday. So here we are into Friday, We're going to go into Friday. This is around, 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. There will be these, let me change here. There will be these scattered showers and thunderstorms. Okay. Just a few thunderstorms here and there, little lightning. Okay. But as far as severe weather, it's possible that Friday morning there will be enough and it doesn't take much. And I told you this last night if you were watching. This time of the year, we don't need a whole lot of instability to make thunderstorms go strong to possible severe. So we could have some action Friday morning as this initial line starts to move in. It will be windy and warm. So now let's go into Friday afternoon. We get a little break. Look at this little break right here. Okay. Now remember, most of this is associated with this low and the Pacific flow, but now we're starting to see Gulf of Mexico, or if you prefer, Gulf of America. I'm just going to say Gulf. Moisture is going to start to move in, along with there's a low pressure system that's going to form back here to the west, right about here in Texas, a second low pressure system. That one is going to move in. Well, let me just move the maps here so you can see it. It should show up. There it is, right there. That's the next low pressure system that's going to travel into our area. This is Saturday. Actually, it's Friday night into Saturday morning. So that's going to be the next surge, and it's going to be the surge that brings us really the most rain. This is Saturday morning, about 4 a.m., and it's going to start raining, and it's going to rain hard. There may be some embedded stronger storms, but this is going to be pretty much all about a big, what I call stratiform, clouds, rain, some wind, thunder, lightning, and just rain, 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 rain. And this is where some of those particular storms that I talked about in the discussion was training thunderstorms. In other words, we're going to have these embedded cells in this broad area that are just going to run over the same piece of real estate over and over and over. The storms will keep regenerating, and that's where we could get maybe some flooding, minor flooding. So this would be Saturday morning. Here's Saturday afternoon. And look at the wind. There's a lot of wind, but here comes our cold air. Around our low, boy, is it going to draw down some really, really cold air. And it starts to move in with the cold front. This is the cold front starting to move in. This is going to be Saturday night about 7 o'clock or so. You're going to really start to feel the coldest of the air moving in. Is there going to be snow? There might be. You're seeing that right there. There might be just enough upper level energy on the backside of that system to produce flurries, what I call flyby flurries, into Saturday night, early Sunday morning, but I don't think it's going to do much more than that. But there it is. Now the cold air takes over, and boy, it's going to get cold. All right. Let me see if this next thing is going to load up. There we go. Next graphic. And this is the blend of models, and this is where I need to kind of move myself out of the way of the screen. Wait a minute. Yeah, there we go. So I can make myself smaller too so you can see that. But there we are. Blend of models clearly showing that we're going to get around 70 tomorrow. If we hit that 70 there on Friday, that would rival, actually equal the record high for the day. It would challenge that record high of 70. I think it was set back in 1930. And then look what happens. We get to around 60 for a high temperature there on Saturday. That would be Saturday morning. Then the cold front comes through, and then temperatures will start to fall on Saturday, and you'll start to feel the cold air coming in. And look what happens. I mean, we go from 60 down to 30, a 30-degree drop, and you can see it there, 60 to 30 by Sunday morning, and then Sunday afternoon only getting up into the mid-30s. But it's only for one day, really, because I showed you the warmer flow that's going to start on Monday. We jump back into the mid-40s, then we go low 50s, then we kind of level out in the 40s for the rest of next week into next weekend. So when it does get cold, it's only going to be cold for maybe one day, and that's all. That's it. All right? All right, coming up, I'm going to read your comments. We've got a ton of them tonight that I'll show you here, and we'll just go through them a couple of times here. But in the meantime, a word from our great sponsor, R&R Controls. Need a generator? The answer is yes, unless you've already bought one, and unless you've already talked to R&R Controls, and they've already come out and set you up with a Generac generator, the number one name in generators. Will we need a generator? Will you need a generator on Friday with the storm coming through, the cold front? Maybe not. But at some point, I think this winter, and certainly in the spring, there's going to be storms that come through and your power is going to go off and you're going to need a generator. So why not just go ahead and do this? It's a brand new year. You're thinking you can't afford it, but you can. R&R Controls will show you how to finance your brand new Generac generator for your home. They make them smaller for your home, or they can make them bigger for your business. However big, however many square feet you need, however many kilowatts you need, they can get it done for you. All they need to do is come out to your place and take a look, and they'll do that. Then they'll set you up on installation, then set you up on a preventative maintenance plan, which is critical, because you can't just get a generator and expect it to come on when you want it to come on. I mean, if it's new, yes. Within a matter of seconds, when the power goes off, this comes on. But then if you leave it just sitting there for years and never run it or never test it or never do maintenance on it, it might not run when you want it to. So R&R Controls will set you up on a preventative maintenance program where they come out, test your Generac generator, and make sure that it's going to run next time the power goes off. All you got to do is call them 270-777-2024. 270-777-2024. And you can go to their website right there, rnrhvac.com. Hit them up on their Facebook page, and that way you'll never be without power. R&R Controls will make sure. All right. Now to your comments. Here's Dennis, I believe it is. Yeah, Dennis. What about Iowa? Winter storm Thursday and Friday into Saturday. Oh, Iowa. Dennis, are you in Iowa, or are you just asking about Iowa? I know we're starting to branch out into other area codes, but I mean, I'm willing to take a look. Let me see what I can find for you because, hey, I want to take care of you if I can and let you know what maybe we're going to see there. So let's go to Iowa. So here we are in Bowling Green. I can go to Iowa. Looks like you got something going on right now at the moment, and that is a hydrologic outlook. Now, a hydrologic output or outlook is where the Weather Service is taking a look at the possibility of some heavy rain. And so what they're calling for here, the Quad Cities, I don't know if that's part of where you live. The river basins there, looks like the second part for high water, the final part of low water, moderate and major flooding. Oh, maybe. Let's see. First of all, we got to, okay, this is where they lay this stuff out in flood stages, and then they take a look forward thinking as to how much rain or water you're going to get. Here are the water levels and what they consider on the Mississippi River a minor flood, a moderate flood, or a major flood. And then they take a look at what are the chances. Right now, it doesn't look like any big chances. There you got the Skunk River, Cedar River, Iowa River. Okay, so this is not really telling us anything about snow or wind or anything like that. So let's see. Dennis here just sent another comment. Des Moines. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dennis, from Des Moines, Iowa. I've been there. And yes, he says, yes, I'm from Iowa. Okay. Well, from what I see, and let's take we'll look at radar. And I don't see, well, there's a little bit, looks like there may be a little snow up here, winter weather area. That's going to be, let's see. Yeah, so right now, south of Minneapolis and in between Minneapolis and Mason City, there's a little bit of snow. And then you go down here, we can switch to Des Moines. Des Moines is right under that. You see it there. Okay, so you've got a little bit of light rain showers, but I know that you've got a system coming in. In fact, I can change maps here. Go back to this one. So here's Des Moines, and here's tomorrow. Low pressure system coming in. Then you've got the cold front with showers, maybe a few thunderstorms. The coldest air still waiting back to the west. The low pressure system that's going to affect us for Thursday night into Friday morning will go into Lake Michigan behind it, drawing in some rain, pretty good rain, but then some of it will start to change over as you head into Friday morning, right there, Des Moines. Right in that pink, purple shaded area, that's mixed rain and snow as a little short wave moves through. Then Friday night, little mix. By Saturday morning, look at this, with the much colder air, you are all snow. All right. So there you go. For Des Moines, Dennis in Des Moines. I feel like I'm doing a radio talk show. And now we go to Dennis in Des Moines. I hope that takes care of you, Dennis. All right. Um, so part of that will be a winter storm kind of a situation, especially as you get into Saturday. So yeah, just kind of watch for that. All right, who's up next? Is it Keiko? Keiko? Is it Keiko Mina? Maybe? I don't want to mispronounce. Don't take offense if I don't pronounce your name right. But Keiko says tornadoes for Bowling Green. I don't think so. I mean, I never say zero, but the percent chance that a tornado might happen is going to be like 1 or 2%, even less than that. Okay. We're going to be in a situation where gusty winds are going to be the primary threat as we get into Friday, and then just a lot of heavy rain. Now, there could be maybe a strong or severe storm or two. Rita is asking about that. Hopefully, no severe storms. Well, good. Yes, I hope. Maybe not. Maybe they just stay right under severe limit. And a severe storm is a storm, any storm that has winds over 58 miles per hour, or we have half-inch diameter or higher hail. So based on that, I doubt we're going to have severe storms. There could be maybe one or two, especially west of us, but I just don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Here is Sue. Snow anyway soon? Not really. Not really. Okay. Not really. I'm sorry. When I was talking about Tim Conway and the elephant and Carol Burnett earlier, here is T. Adams. Siamese elephant. Yeah. And then here is Sierra. And she's like, love the elephant. Sierra. And she even put a little elephant there. That's pretty cool, Sierra. And then when Tim Conway did he was a snork. You gotta love it. It's just funny stuff, and I like to talk about that. This is, I know it's called 270 Weather, but it's my podcast, and sometimes I want to talk about other stuff besides weather. So Butch is like, just give the weather. All right, Butch. Okay. Now I'm disappointed. Butch is mad at me. So here's SDFR Landon. All the seasons have been late getting here. Yes, the seasons seem to be off or skewed a little from where they normally are. I agree with that. But is it all about global warming or climate change? Yeah, there's climate change. There's change always going on from season to season, and the climate does change. But is it what we think when we hear the term global warming or climate change? Not necessarily. Things go in cycles in weather. And sometimes we get a cycle. We get what's called phases. We get phases and we give them numbers, phase 1, 2, 3. In a season, we're like phase 6 or 7 going into 8 now. So those particular phases, things have a pattern and have a way of just kind of playing out. And I call it weather behavior, if you will. Is the weather going to misbehave based on the pattern that we're seeing right now? And things are just skewed a little bit. That's not to say it's never going to go back to the way it was, but the pattern right now is what it is, and it's just a little quirky right now. So thank you for that. Here's Kirk. Heavy rain brings ponding on the road. Safe travels for all. Thanks for sharing, Chris. Yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind when we get all of those systems coming in like they've been behaving lately. And it's hard. Sometimes it's a challenge to keep up with on forecasting. But I've been here long enough to kind of know, all right, I've seen this before. This is the way this one's going to go. So there you go. All right. I think I'm done. I think we're done for this evening. And I appreciate all of your comments. And thank you always for watching and supporting 270 Weather and watching me and supporting me on television at News 40. I'll be there in the morning, 6 a.m., 9 a.m., and noon. And I'll have the very latest update on this potential severe weather that's going to come in on Friday. Right now, I'm leaning toward it's not going to be that big of a deal. Kind of right in here. It's not going to be this. It's going to be right in here. But I'll have an update in the morning to see how it all is going to pan out. In the meantime, God bless you. Thank you for watching. Almost an hour again. How does it get away from me? Good Lord. I don't look at the clock until I'm ready to close up, and it's like, what? Anyway. See y'all later. God bless.